Hi class, I'm going to walk you through how to conduct lab 4.1 so that you can write your final review or lab report of the semester. So this is it. This is the last one. You've done correlations, Pearson's R, Spearman's Rho. You did your t-test for the last lab, and for this one, you're going to do an ANOVA. And then you'll know how to do everything pretty much, at least in JASP. So let me share my screen. Okay, so this is the lab 4.1 document, right? This is where you see all the information that we always talk about. The topic of this lab is the role of storage and retrieval queues on memory. So we're saying, hey, what happens to information if you can't remember it? Is it really forgotten, or could it be queued? And then that queue could help someone find that information that we thought was lost. So by using retrieval queues, Tolving and Pearlstone have shown that the material that was assumed to be forgotten could be recalled or made accessible. Similarly, many people experience difficulty in remembering at times, only to find that later in other conditions, they can remember that information. So it wasn't really forgotten or it wasn't gone. It was just they needed something to jog their memory. And so you're going to conduct an experiment following that idea, right? So Tolving and Osler did this list with 24 unrelated words to participants. We said, hey, memorize this word. They had 19 conditions. You're not going to do a lab for 19 conditions. That would be crazy. That would be like a MANOVA on steroids. So you're only going to do 4. You'll have your 4 participants, but each participant will have a different condition. So for the first time, you're not going to have 2 and 2. You're going to have 4. You're going to have 4 different conditions. So half of the participants will receive a verbal cue along with each word that they're trying to memorize, and half will not. For Tolving and Osler's, the cues were weak associates of the words in the lists that were assumed to serve as possible aids for memory. At recall, each group was divided so that half the participants received the cues and half didn't. So here's what your 4 conditions are going to be called. Cues at both encoding and retrieval. So we have this random list of words you're going to want your participant to memorize. And for this condition, your first participant, so to speak, you're going to give them this cue, like this memory aid word at encoding. So when they're memorizing the list, and retrieval, when they're trying to write down as many words as they can remember. That'll be your group called CC. And then cues at encoding. So when they're memorizing the list, when the information is being encoded into their memory, you're going to give them this cue word to help hopefully remember later, but you're not going to tell them the word at retrieval. You're just going to hope that it made it into their brain and they can remember it. That'll be your CNC group. No cues at encoding. So when you're giving them this list to memorize, you're not giving them any cue word, but cues at retrieval. So when they're trying to guess what word or remember these words from their memory, you're going to give them these cue words to see if maybe that cue did jog their memory. And that's your NCC group. And then your last group, your 4th participant, no cues at encoding or retrieval, NC. So that, think of that as your control group. That one we didn't manipulate anything. You just gave them the words to memorize and then you asked them to write them down. So no one was manipulated in that 4th scenario there. Tolving and Osler predicted and found that group CC, so when they had a cue at encoding and retrieval, recalled more words than no cues at encoding or retrieval, but less clear predictions existed concerning these 2 in the middle. So did having keywords at the beginning but not the end, or the end but not the beginning, did that throw people off? They couldn't really tell if there was a relationship or there was some significance there. So results showed that recall under these immediate conditions was no better and in fact slightly worse than this condition. So maybe if you have cues at encoding and retrieval, it's helpful, more helpful than no cues. But if you throw them in the middle at the beginning or at the end, it just kind of makes it worse and confuses people. And so they don't do as well. At least that's what they found. So your study is based on that. But again, instead of doing like 16 people, you're just going to do 4. So you're going to collect your data. You need 4 participants, preferably college students. Doesn't have to be, they don't have to be psych majors. And they could be your same 4, they could be a different 4 if those other 4 people you've been using all semester aren't talking to you anymore and you have to find new friends. This one, Like I said, each person is going to get a different condition. So when you test these participants, if they're all together at the same house or same room or whatever, make sure that everybody else leaves and it's just you and the participant alone, so that the other people that are your participants aren't clouded by previous data. So this table has 24 words right here, from the Kent Rosenoff 1910 word association list. And then 1 week between 1% and 7% associate for each word. So these words in parentheses, those are the weak associations. Those are going to be your Q words. And I'm saying Q, C-U-E, Q words, but it probably sounds like keywords in the video. C-U-E words. Copy each of these 24 words on a separate index card with corresponding weak associates on the back side of the card. So you're going to need 24 index cards, and on one you're going to write table, and on the back side of that card you're going to write desk, but so that your participant can't see it. So when you held up the word table on your index card, right, make sure that desk is written lighter on the back side so that they couldn't see the word. You don't want them to cheat, right? And so write table on the front, desk maybe in smaller print on the back, so you can give them the cue if they're in that right condition, but they couldn't read it through the card. And then the same, dark on a card and put room on the back, black on the front of the card, cat on the back, right? Do this for all 24 words. So you need 24 index cards and a Sharpie or other permanent black marker. But I don't know, what do you use if it's not a Sharpie? Okay, so the words to be recalled will be presented visually to the participants at a rate of 1 word every 4 seconds. So right, you're holding up the word 4 seconds, and then you're holding up the word every 4 seconds, right? You're changing the index card, you're letting them read it every 4 seconds, right? If they're in the CC condition, you see this here, the CC condition or the CNC condition, you're gonna say that corresponding weak associate word on the back when you hold it up. So if they are in that condition and it's table, you're gonna hold it up, they're gonna read table. You're not gonna say table, you're not saying the word on the front. They're gonna read it, and then you're gonna say desk. And you hold up the next one. And they're gonna read dark, and you're gonna say rude. And you'll proceed like that if they're in the CC or the CNC condition. And then you're going to read these instructions before you start. This is a study of factors affecting memory. I'll show you a series of 24 unrelated words, which I want you to read silently and try to remember because I'll ask you to recall them afterwards. I will show you each a word on a separate card for about 4 seconds each, right? And you don't need to have a stopwatch going and like make sure it's exactly 4 seconds. Just kind of count to yourself and then move on to the next card. So for the participants in the CC and the CNC conditions, then read these extra instructions, but don't read these instructions to your other 2 participants. As an aid to your memory, I'll say a word aloud as I show each of the 24 words to be recalled. Use these spoken words as hints if you can, but you won't have to recall these words later or recall them later. And that's it. That's all you say, and then you start. Prepare an answer sheet for all participants, which I'm going to show you from the packets that we have for your cued retrieval conditions. The answer sheets have the 24 weak associates in the single column on an order that's different from the one used during encoding. Give them a 30-second break. So you show them the last index card, the 24th word. Give them a 30-second break, and then just give them the answer sheet, and then read the instructions here, depending on if they're in the CNC, NCNC, CC, or NCC condition. At the end of the 5-minute recall period, so they get 5 minutes, and after the 5 minutes, if they've written all 24 and they're amazing and have wonderful memory, then you can end it sooner. And if not, let them go the full 5 minutes and write down as many as they can remember. Take the answer sheet, interrogate your participant concerning any strategies that may have been used, right? Because we want to know, hey, they wrote down 15, and ask them, hey, how did you remember these? Did you remember the keywords? Did those help you? Just kind of ask them. Or did they write a story, or did they do rote memorization, or what did your participant do that helped them remember however many words they remembered? Because that'll help you write your lab report when you're in your discussion section and you're hypothesizing about things. Also ask them if the intended keywords were helpful. Answer any questions they have about the experiment. Thank them for their time and their participation, and tell them that it's your last lab of the semester, and so you won't ever ask them to do these ridiculous tasks again. That doesn't say that. I made that up. Be sure to shuffle your list of cards before starting with your next participant. So you don't want them in the same 1 through 24 order for every participant. So just kind of shuffle them around between each of your people. Then do everything again, but read the instructions for each section, right? Because all 4 participants are doing something a little bit different. You're going to record the number of correctly recalled words and the number of incorrectly recalled words. These are called false intrusions. And so sometimes people think there was a word on the list that wasn't. And so we want to know how many they recalled that were correct, and if they made up any that they thought were on there that weren't. And you're going to record it on the summary sheet I'm going to show you. Scan and submit that one data summary sheet. I only want that one document. Don't give me more than that. That one document. And so let me stop this share and show you the materials packet. I don't think that's it. Is that it? Nope. Hold on. Please hold. This one. Okay, so this is the packet, and it's under the modules 2, and it just says lab 4.1 module or 4.2 module materials packet. Lab 4 materials packet. That's what it says. Final answer. So here's your cover page that's just for you. And then look, so there's this first page. So that's your first participant. They're the CC group, right? So when you do those instructions with your participant, they're going to write down the words that they can recall. And these are those association words. They're cues. Here, this group you see down here, this is the NCC group. So they have the cue words as well. This group is the CNC group. So there's no cue words there. And then this one, your control group, the NCNC group, they didn't get cues at encoding or retrieval, and so they have no cue words there. So you're going to write down the score of how many correct they got and how many incorrect they made up. And that's what you're going to write here. So participant 1 was the CC condition, their age, their gender, how many were correctly recalled, and if they made up any that they thought was on the list that were not. So you're going to do that for each one. And then this page right here is the only page I want you to turn in PDF before 11:59 on the due date. So I hope that makes sense. That's a lot of information, and you can go back and read it slowly to yourself or watch the video a bunch. But the main thing, they're just read the instructions clearly to yourself for each participant, so you know what you're doing. So when they ask you questions, you know what they're saying, and you don't mess up the condition by, giving them a cue word if they weren't supposed to have a cue. So just pay attention to that, and I think you'll be good. That's it.